All right. Welcome to 8 steps to take now towards creating your future nonprofit. Our deepest intention for you today is that you feel supported in your journey towards visioning and creating your future nonprofit or church or social impact project or healing center or even retreat center. So thank you so much for resourcing yourself with us, for resourcing yourself now, so that later when you're ready, you have the tools, you have the community, and even the mindsets that you need to birth your project of positive change to touch hearts and change lives with your mission. I'm Jessica Hadari. I'm the organizer of the series, and I'm also the founder of the Women Light Leaders Network, which has been a sanctuary for networking, wisdom sharing, and community for women for nearly 20 years. I truly believe that collaboration and women resourcing women makes it easier for us all to build what we came here to create. So I really want to acknowledge you all for being here and for being the kind of women leaders who are dedicated, who have dedicated your lives, who are dedicated to making the world a better place, who've dedicated your lives and your businesses to making the world a better place. As you know, this class, this training is also a fundraiser for the Indigenous Environmental Network. 100% of the proceeds, sales for this masterclass are donated to the Indigenous Environmental Network. And I just want to appreciate you all for being so generous. Many of you gave very generously, so thank you. You are voting with your money. I'll go ahead and just paste the website for the Indigenous Environmental Network right into the chat so that if you do feel called to donate directly, or to find out more about their incredible work, you can do so. I just put the link in the chat. The final thing I want to say before we dive in is that this is part of a series of 5 nonprofit trainings, Vision, Create, and Grow Your Nonprofit trainings. And through these trainings, we are bringing you over a dozen brilliant women leaders who, like Tessa, Rose, Julie, and Carolyn today, have successfully created and led nonprofits, healing centers, and foundations all over the world. And we will continue to share what we know with you about setting up an organization and running it in a really balanced and joyful way. So if you would like to receive future email invitations for all of our upcoming trainings, I just put a link in the chat. You can go ahead and click it and enter your information. We already have your information, but you can also just click this if you'd like to continue to hear about our upcoming trainings in the series. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in so that you can meet the panelists. Now, panelists, you can go ahead and set your timers for 2 minutes. I'm going to give you each 2 minutes and I'll call on you. And basically in this first round, you're going to be able to introduce yourself. Panelists, feel free to paste your contact information or any links in the chat so that the participants can follow up with you. And participants, we really want to encourage you to reach out and connect with the panelists here as you resonate. If you feel like you feel called to reach out to any or all of the panelists, we're giving you the direct contact information so that you can actually do that, because we want you to continue to resource yourself after this training. So panelists, you're going to go ahead and introduce yourself briefly, and then make sure you leave time in your share to share one step. We're going to dive right in, one step that women here can start to take today to turn their dream philanthropic project, their future nonprofit, their church, their healing center into a reality. Introduce yourself and share one step that women can start to take today to start to turn their dream project into a reality. And I'll go ahead and just put the prompt in the chat so that everybody can see it. And what I'd like to do is start with Tessa. Tessa, you can unmute yourself. The floor is yours for these 2 minutes.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Jessica. My name's Tessa.Alburn, and I believe that everyone matters. And when everyone matters, your team retention, your revenues, and your social impact go up. All of those go up. I've been the graduate department director for the Hoffman Institute Foundation, and I forgot my timer. So there we go. And I developed a national training program for facilitators around the country, including some other countries at times as well, and created programming to actively engage alumni. And I have unique experience and also unofficially creating harmonious teamwork and engagement of donors and alumni. And I've also been an educator and consultant with the American Red Cross, the American Oceans Campaign. I volunteered for the National MS Society and several other organizations. I currently teach introverted women to be in their feminine energy mastery and have their voices be heard, whether in their life or in business. And I also am a consultant for business owners. I think one of the first things that you could take action on, the first step to turn your dream into a reality, is to align with and anchor to your spiritual purpose and your intention. What is that essence, that energetic essence that's going to create the longevity, the sustainability for it, the big vision, your legacy? Because that is super important to start magnetizing things in. So I would say to you, really connect with your big why, WHY. What makes your heart ache that you are willing to take a stand for in the world, no matter what? So I believe I probably am complete. And Jessica, I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Tessa. We warmly welcome you.
Thank you.
Rose, I'm calling on you to go next.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. And I am Rose. And the tip I'd love to share is to be very clear on your mission, your message, share it everywhere with everyone, especially when you're first visioning and you're first beginning. What I currently do is multifaceted. I have a full service day spa and healing center in the Pacific Northwest, which also funds my not-for-profits. One of them is in the mountains of beautiful Oregon. I'm actually here today. I sanctuary animals, hospice animals, and it's absolutely what lights my soul on fire. We also have retreats here, workshops, and in some cases, opportunities for people to really connect with the animals for healing. Another thing I do as a not-for-profit is to create scholarships to burn down any barriers that may be preventing women from accessing the sacred work of their soul. And I'd love to pass back to you, Jessica.
And I also just want to name that Rose is also a mother of 6 children. So on top of running a healing center, an animal sanctuary, a business, retreats, you are a woman who is spinning many plates. So we'll dive into a little bit more about that later. Rose, we welcome you. And then yes, Tessa, Rose, go ahead and put your contact information in the chat. Women can connect with you. Rose, we welcome you and So glad that you're here. Julie, sister of many years, welcome, welcome. It's just really wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Jessica. On my timer. Happy to be here. I'm Julie. I'm a business strategist and I design group experiences. I help leaders and experts to synthesize their most powerful work into transformational group programs and retreats. I also consult with organizations and movements and businesses and how to level up or craft larger scale experiences like conferences, festivals, and and other gatherings, to increase connection and meaning and impact. I've created hundreds of different kinds of communal experiences over the years, from activist conferences to spiritual festivals, business strategy retreats, kind of you name it, nonprofit fundraisers. And I co-founded an organization called Wilderness Torah, which is a Bay Area-based, earth-based Jewish community organization. Before that, I had various positions in environmental and social justice organizations in Washington, D.C. and California. And I'm a firm believer that connection and community and the deep transformation they support are the foundational driving principles behind an effective group program, really group experience of any kind. So, one step you can take today, honestly, it's so similar to what people are saying, but I'll say it again because it's that important. Excuse me, is to get crystal clear on that outcome, that deliverable, as it's called in the funding world, of your project. And once you've clarified that tangible outcome, to create your powerful message. And the message is your rallying cry to attract all the kinds of support that you need for your organization, volunteers, funds. It's just as important to have a clear and powerful promise and an inspiring way to communicate it in this kind of project and in a nonprofit as it is in your business, right? Like there's a lot of noise out there and you've got to be able to cut through that with your message. So yeah, that's me. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Julie, thank you so much. We warmly welcome you. Carolyn, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Jones. So my business is Absolute Numbers. It's an accounting management firm, and I've run that for 20 years now. And basically what happened is my business, I took a step back and my business doubled. And once we crossed 7 figures, I thought, what's next? This isn't feeding my soul. And so I first started a nonprofit that serves as a resource, and this is an unincorporated nonprofit, which we'll talk more about later, but it serves as a resource for entrepreneurs that have mental health challenges, burnout, anxiety, depression. It's very dear to my heart because that's really the reason why I started my business in the first place. And then more recently, I experienced the benefits of microdosing and I thought this is magical and I really want to get this out in the world. And I started a free church, a 501(c)(1)(a). And so I'm using these as vehicles to really fulfill my soul purpose, while also having a business that's basically my benefactor now. So I'm really excited to share more details on that. And I welcome anyone to email me with questions afterward. I'm really excited to be here and get started.
Carolyn, thank you so much for being here. We're excited for your wisdom. And I'll also just name that this is a kind of a unique moment where Tessa, Rose, Julie, and Carolyn are all part of what I call my Queen Circle, which is a community of 6 and 7 figure women entrepreneurs within my greater Rise sisterhood community. So it's just really a pleasure to have known some of these sisters for many years and to be getting to know these just wise women. So welcome, Tessa, Rose, Julie, and Carolyn. I am so grateful for your presence in my life and so glad to be here with you today. Audience, before we go into our next deeper dive round with each of the panelists, go ahead and type into the chat, what is your vision? What is your dream nonprofit or project of positive change? you can go ahead and type into the chat. And it looks like I just saw Catherine was having a tough time for some reason opening up Julie's website. I'm not sure if that's just it looks like everything's spelled okay for me, so we might have to take care of that later.
My website was recently hacked, so it's all screwed up. So if it's showing up, it's probably screwed up, and if it's not, it's being worked on.
So you can email Julie, Catherine. Thanks so much, Julie. Yeah, so go ahead and take a moment, wise women, audience members, to share in the chat your vision. What is your dream nonprofit? What prayer are you holding in your heart for some kind of project of positive change? Beautiful. And you can continue to share as we move forward with our panel discussions. And audience members, part of our intention for being here today is for you to come away feeling inspired. And I know that when I tap into the hearts and the wisdom of other women, but also the dreams of other women who are already doing amazing work in the world, I feel inspiration. I feel inspired. I feel like, wow, I'm among other people. I'm not doing this alone. So, Danielle's here. Welcome, Danielle. Danielle's one of our panelists for future training. Wonderful, beautiful. Yeah, feel free to lean in and look at what is coming through in the chat as we move forward. We're going to go into our next round here so that we can stay on track and give you all the juicy wisdom that you're here for. So we're going to go into a deeper dive with Julie. And Julie, you can go ahead and set your timer for 3 minutes. I know you've been prepping. And so this particular deep dive is really around how do we raise awareness, right? Because we can't just create a business or a nonprofit and kind of hang the sign up and just assume that it's going to go viral, or that people are going to, the community is just going to grow itself around it. We do need to raise awareness, and we do need to raise money. And so we're going to deep dive with Julie under the umbrella of raising awareness and raising money for your organization. Julie, you have worked for multiple political environmental organizations. You're an expert in community-based nonprofits, and you also co-founded a thriving organization, as you mentioned, called Wilderness Torah, and are now on the board of that organization. And you're really an expert in creating community and organizing community events, trainings, conferences, festivals to create transformation, to raise awareness, and to raise money. So can you please talk about organizing community events as a powerful way to raise awareness and raise funds? And also, if you can give women here a step that they can take towards this. So organizing community events as a way to raise awareness and raise funds, and giving women a step.
Yes, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Jessica. So I'm going to share about how powerfully designed community experiences translate into investment, awareness first, and investment into your organization or project. So this means financial investment, volunteer time, and staff investment, and the investment of the people who you serve. Sometimes those are the same. This is core, right, to a successful nonprofit. Without money and without super appreciated people who are doing hard work for the cause that you've rallied people around, you've got nothing really. No matter how amazing the mission and the vision are, the people and money resources are essential. So intentional community experience design is essential, whether the purpose of your project is bringing people together for experiences. So perhaps the core work of your organization is spiritual retreats or trainings or something on the one hand. On the other hand, it might just be that you weave experiences into your model. So fundraising events, volunteer appreciation, staff leadership training, public education, kickoff events, annual celebrations, conferences, right? There's all sorts of ways to weave events into your organization, and most organizations do. And events, they have the potential to be so powerful because they connect people, right? Through gathering people with similar values, through helping people really see each other's humanity, through sharing experiences, working on or learning something together, right? It's transformative. This kind of connection leads to transformation, right? And if you can create a transformational experience that leads to the results that you want, more resources for your organization, for example, right? Then you can have a deeper impact, right? So events can be this like fun, fulfilling, powerful, effective way to really grow your organization or project. But not all events are created equal, right? Like not all done well. You've probably been to a boring presentation about an organization's work, or like maybe like an awkward fundraising event. Not sure if anybody's had that experience before. But it matters. It really matters how you craft your events, right? So how do we create experiences that generate investment and support? So what I want to do very quickly in this last minute is go through a model that I created. That's a framework for creating a connective container for transformation at your event. Okay, so the 4 elements of this model kind of join together to create a really powerful and tangible impact for your whatever event or program you're creating for your nonprofit. I'm even going to drop a little graphic of it, because I'm going to say this pretty quickly, and I'm going to drop a little graphic in here if you just want to check it later. It's a Google Doc. So the first thing to create the connective container is core purpose clarity. This is claiming the most aligned and most game-changing outcome for your event based on your audience, right? And then creating super clear messaging that gets folks like lining up the door. The next one after core purpose clarity is culture. It's just like welcoming people, establishing norms, agreements, a clear agenda, a shared purpose, and values too, right? That empower people to fully participate, that bonds your group together and gives your event its own special vibe, right? And sense of belonging. The third piece to creating a connective container is community, right? So this is like celebrating the humanity of each person there, right? Allowing them to show up with all their identities, experiences, messiness, celebrations. This depends on what kind of event you're doing, right? But helping people basically connect to one another, right? And weaving a web that supports like exponential synergies to arise in service of the goal of the event. And then finally, of course, is the content of your event, right? Designing the elements and the flow so that it achieves the stated outcome, right? Keeping it simple and clear and spacious, anticipating where folks might go into any kind of resistance, and then building in support to move them through the process toward the shared outcome, right? So that's the brief version of how you really design an event for real connection and transformation. And of course, I talk about events, but of course, events create awareness, right? They're an amazing way to create awareness about your project, right? Like if you create a sexy and cool and fun and well-messaged enough event, like the people will come, and that's an incredible way to build awareness and support for your organization. So the first step, honestly, dream up an event that would be an amazing kickoff or fundraising event for your project and clarify its core purpose, and then build everything around that. That's it.
Thank you so much, Julie. I so appreciated the graphic too. That was wonderful. What a lovely surprise. And it's like, ooh, we can actually screen share this. So that link is in the chat for participants to take with them. And I'll make sure that that's included with the recording as well. Wonderful. What I'd like to do is have Tessa speak to this piece just for a quickie 1 minute. So this is a little lightning round. Tessa, what would you like for women here to start to prepare for when it comes to visibility, raising awareness, or raising money? Anything you want to speak to?
Yes, certainly. Well, I love what Julie just presented, and I want to just take it back to sort of like what could be that baby step for you. And I think one of the things that really is important when you're starting to create gatherings and get your message out there, it's really your personal story around the positive solution. So really getting in touch with that, being able to talk about it in a way that isn't like overwhelming to people, in a way that's inviting to them, that shows your heart energy and your soul purpose that's connected to this. And then in terms of creating your first maybe community event, it could be 4 ladies in your living room having tea, right? So just really heart-centered brainstorming, for example. You don't have to start with something gigantic. All right. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Tessa. Rose, I'm going to also have you answer this one. Just a quickie minute. What would you like for women here to understand or start to prepare in the realm of raising awareness or raising money for their future organization?
Thank you. I would love for women to begin to prepare somewhat of a signature mini talk that you could share with anyone, anytime, anywhere. So you can always be sharing your vision and planting these seeds towards your vision. So to be clear in that mini talk, to be clear about what it is that you're building, what is your vision, and how can they help you also. It's surprising when someone says, "Oh, I love this. How can I help? What do you need?" But sometimes we go blank. So to make that a part of what you're sharing as well is asking people want to help, especially those that are well aligned with what you're doing. Make it easy for them. Back to you.
Thank you so much. Carolyn, we're actually going to go into our deep dive with you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and deep dive with Carolyn, who's kind of our resident accountant today. And so we're going to dive into the topic of financial leadership. So Carolyn, you have 3 minutes. You are a 7-figure business owner. You're also an accountant specializing in brick and mortar businesses, but you've also founded a not-for-profit, you founded your own church. So can you give us tips on how to choose the right business entity, 501c3, B Corp, et cetera? And if you could also, if you have time to squeeze it in, share with us a financial mistake that you would like for us to avoid. So how do we know what the correct business entity, business structure for our project? How do we know how to choose the right one? And any mistake that you'd really love for us to avoid?
Yeah. It's a really good question, because if anybody has started to research how to set up their nonprofit, there are endless possibilities. The most common one we see that everyone's familiar with is the 501c3. It's basically a public charity, and the benefits of creating that is that you can receive grants, you can issue tax deductible donations, and the drawbacks is you have to jump through a lot of government hoops. You have to apply for it, it takes long, and you also have to, even though it's tax exempt, you have to file an informational return, a 990. And that's actually available to the public. Anyone can go into any nonprofit and see their informational return. Another really great option that I didn't even know about until I went to create my church is a private membership association. It's a PMA. And you don't file anything with the government. You basically decree that you are an association. You have to have pretty good paperwork in case you're ever challenged, your articles of association, things like that. It is tax exempt up until about $5,000. And then at that point, you have to basically ask the IRS to verify that you're tax exempt by filing a 1023 form. And at that point, you become a 501c3. And you'll see PMAs. It's great. It's basically a group of people decide we're all members of this. We agree to what we're doing in this circle. So you've probably, if you've homeschooled, there's a lot of homeschooling associations, unpasteurized milk. There's kind of in states that have, in dry states, you can have a drinking club. So it's kind of along those lines. And then the another one is the church. So it's a 508c1a, it's a free church. And basically the premise is the government doesn't tell me I have the right to exist, God does. And that's probably the one with the most freedom. You create your own paperwork. There is no 990. And so it creates a lot more separation from state. You can basically operate as you are. And the main rule is you can't cause harm. So you have to be in a position to, if you ever need to defend something like that. But again, I ended up going that route just because it is tax exempt. You don't have to file informational returns, and it gives you the most autonomy. And am I out of time? On my clock I am, but real quick I'll mention, a B Corp. So maybe you have a social enterprise that is for profit, like a Tom's kind of thing. And I can answer questions later just because I want to stay on time here. But there's a benefit corp, and that's basically a legal structure like a C Corp or an S Corp. And then there's a B Corp certification, and those are kind of confusing because people interchange that, but they're different. And the B Corp certification is actually more stringent because you have to reapply every year. You have to jump through some hoops. And that's kind of the basics of your options when starting a social enterprise. And one mistake, oh yeah, Jessica?
No, go ahead.
Okay. One mistake it's across the board, for-profit, nonprofit, is commingling your funds. Don't run everything through your personal accounts. Designate a credit card. It could still be a personal card, and just put everything on there. It just creates a lot of problems, a lot of extra work. So once you know that you have this entity, this project, and you start incurring expenses, just have a dedicated place for those funds. Think of it as a vessel for the money for your project.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. And we're going to field questions later. So audience members, if you have questions about any of the entities, examples that she gave, we'll go ahead and open that up for Q&A a little bit later. We did, though, receive a question that I think might be interesting for a lot of women here. Can you receive tax-deductible donations for the church for the 508c1a?
So you can, yes, and actually all your income should be listed as donations and gifts. Now, it's a gray area on whether you can issue it as a tax deduction, and it basically, I would say it depends on the size of the donation. If it's a big donor, and it might run under IRS scrutiny. So for example, if they were audited and the IRS says, we don't think that's a tax exempt organization, they might dig deeper, and they might actually force you to fill out the form 1023, at which time you become a 501c3. So it's kind of a gray area. I would say small donations, yes, you can accept and give, your tax deductible letter. But big donors that might be more scrutinized, I would say it's kind of iffy.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. We're going to go ahead and go a little bit deeper into this topic with Rose and Julie. So I'd love to hear from Rose, and this is just a 1-minute quickie. What should women here know or start to do to ensure the financial success of their philanthropic project?
So important. Start early. And be in connection with professionals like Carolyn. Have a team of advisors and professionals that you pay to work with you in a professional capacity that will advise and support you in your accounting, bookkeeping. Invest early and save. I love investing because that money is working for me 24 hours a day, making more money, babies. And I am very passionate about abundance. So I definitely encourage you, even if it's $5, there are ways to invest early to support your vision. That vision is a nonprofit, if it's a healing center or retreats, whatever it is. Invest early and build a team of trusted professionals to support you financially.
Thank you so much, Rose. Julie?
Great. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay. All right. Well, I wanted to focus more on the fundraising side. So what I would say is diversification. So like, just like with wealth building, right? You want different revenue streams, and not be totally reliant on, on one pot of cash. So small donors, community donors, major donors, people that can give every year, foundations, event sponsorships, earned revenues, right? Like courses or educational programs or products, right? It's challenging to be fully reliant on philanthropic donations. And so you really want to have different streams. That said, don't try to do it all at once, right? Like step by step, or you will absolutely burn out. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's like, oh wow, this person just gave us a ton of money. Great. Still make sure you have other people. And then I think the other piece that's really important to understand is that nonprofits, probably other entities too, for sure, go through phases. So at first you're in this like exciting startup phase and people are more like, oh yeah, let's give money to the cool new thing. But then that kind of peters out at a certain point, and you have to be able to capture your accomplishments in a way and message that to funders to show them how you can leverage what you've done to deepen or broaden your impact, right? So you really have to be able to see your organizational growth in stages and know what to do and say at each stage to continue raising money.
Thank you so much, Julie. We're going to dive into our deep dive with Tessa. So Tessa, you also are going to have your 3 minutes to dive deep. This particular round is all about team leadership. You have unique experience in cultivating harmonious nonprofit leadership, as well as team building and even volunteer training and coordinating. So I'd like for you to share about the importance of having an engaged team. And because I think also people are like, oh, I'll have my nonprofit and then I'll build my team. But team is actually something that we can start engaging in psychologically, and even in the, physically, if you will, gathering our team before we even get there. So how can you, as the leader of your business or moving towards your future nonprofit or church, how can a leader create a sense of empowerment and a sense of value for all the staff? And I think this ties into what Julie was just saying of like, there's the excitement of the newness, but how do you kind of keep that sense of enrollment? How do you keep your volunteers engaged? How do you create a sense of empowerment, value, and engagement with the team? Also, if you can touch on what women can do to start now to gather future supporters and team.
Okay, great. So let me start my timer. There we go. So I love that you mentioned staff and volunteers, because both of those require specific kinds of attention. And they both mean you're going to thrive or you're not, depending on how you communicate with them and how you connect with them and how you involve them. So a lot of nonprofits certainly struggle with high turnovers of volunteers and the people that train the volunteers and all of that. And so with your volunteers, you want three primary things, in my opinion. You want to be able to recognize them authentically, right? Like, it is not enough to say, oh, great job, thanks for, watering those plants out in the wetlands. It needs to be specific to that person. So any kind of appreciation you can give, like on their showing up on time and dedicating and the energy that they bring to things. You want to really think about how you're going to appreciate people and use your words. You can also create opportunities through your messaging to appreciate your volunteers, right? Sometimes like just a photo is saying, oh my gosh, our volunteers were amazing today, at the such and such gathering where we raised this amount of money. We couldn't have done it without them. Just those things all throughout the years will really pay off. The second thing with volunteers is having a structure for them, like structure and education. They really need to know how it is they can participate with you, and they need to know the guidelines of that and the principles behind it. Like, so like how they're going to show up, if they're going to be visible, like say at a booth somewhere, they need to know how to be with people and what their outcomes are. So you're giving them ownership, you're empowering them and educating them, and then letting them do it. So, you know, you can check in on them, but not micromanage. Accountability is the third piece for volunteers, because a lot of organizations that I've seen that don't have accountability for their volunteers just find that people aren't showing up on time, they're flaking out, they're like, oh, somebody else will fill in, it's really not that important. So the accountability piece is really valuable, and I believe that how you do that is by including your people in the process, right? So let's say there's going to be a change to what the volunteers have been doing. You need to include them in that. And I want to also, in a few moments, I'm going to speak to staff just a little bit on that, but I know that my time is at a close for right now. So Jessica, I'll hand it off to you and let me know when you would like me to speak to staff.
Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, we're going to go into another round here with everybody pretty shortly. What I will do is I'd like to call on, this is another little lightning round with Julie and Carolyn. What do you want women here to understand, either about team leadership or how they can start to gather supporters and team now? And so I'll have Julie go first.
Well, Tessa, maybe I'll speak to a little bit of what you were going to say, because the thing that came to me is just that it's so important to bring everybody along, right? Like if you want invested staff and volunteers, include them in the process, the decision-making processes, include them in the planning and the things that you're doing in the organization. Listen to them, be empathetic to their needs and their desires and their ideas. They're the people actually, doing the thing, right? And that said, like, it doesn't mean that everyone's at all the meetings. It doesn't mean you need a consensus-based decision-making process. It means, you're figuring out where the staff and volunteer community input is going to be really useful and implementable too, right? Like, because there's nothing worse than having meetings where folks give feedback and then nothing changes, right? So you're very intentionally designing your organizational structures and processes and design processes to hear important and diverse voices in your organization, ideally from all levels, from all the different audiences of your organization. The staff and volunteers are one of which. And then, of course, I'm going to say this, but creating, fun and powerful and connective staff and volunteer retreats or events to appreciate people, to connect them more deeply with one another, and to create, more investment for the project or the organization.
Thank you so much, Julie. Carolyn, I'd love to hear you speak to team and perhaps what women can do now to start moving towards creating their team.
Yeah, I think what Tessa shared is so important, for a volunteer run organization. And I think my advice is going to come from the perspective of a volunteer. And it's very simple. Don't burn out your volunteers. I was volunteering somewhere, and it definitely fed my heart. But it was physical labor and it was grueling. And at some point it was just too much. And I don't know if the organization is aware that they were burning out their volunteers. There wasn't any kind of like, oh, you don't want to volunteer anymore. Let's have a conversation or a discussion. So there wasn't even an opportunity to give them that feedback, really. And so just be mindful, yes, you need that help, and maybe you need that help with everything. But be aware, be mindful of, how much time you're taking from your volunteers, how grueling the work is, how intensive, even emotional burnout is a thing. just how deep you let people go into the organization, you know, and mix it up with staff more, you know, and definitely you'd rather have a volunteer than a staff member, you know, from an expense perspective, but, you know, mix it up, throw in a staff person to help with that physical labor so that we know it's just not all on our shoulders.
Thank you so much. Audience, before we go into our next round, I want you to feel free to share in the chat a takeaway from what's been shared so far. Anything that has kind of stuck with you that you'll be taking with you, just to name that, to kind of anchor that in or have it witnessed. What are you taking away from what's been shared so far? You can go ahead and type that in the chat. And we're going to go ahead and switch gears to our deep dive with Rose. Rose is going to be diving into brick and mortar wisdom, because I know that some of you have dreams of a future retreat center or healing center, or an organization that has a physical presence in your community. So Rose, I know that you can also speak very powerfully about leading teams. You have run a successful brick and mortar healing center for years. You've run an animal rescue with a physical presence in your community, and you also lead live retreats for women. For women here today who dream of creating a brick and mortar project, rescue, retreat, church, healing center, what are some steps that women here can take to get closer to their brick and mortar dream?
Thank you. Get to know the area, the industry that you want to build in. What is your vision? If your vision is a for-profit healing center, then I recommend that one would go into either to volunteer or to work as part of a team or a practitioner in that industry. Being strong, positive relationships in that industry, not only in the business that you would be sort of trying out, also in the community with other businesses, vendors, that sort of thing. And know also the realistic cost of doing business. Maybe get a mentor in the industry. So maybe get a mentor that runs a day spa healing center, and really get close to them and learn what are the realistic costs of this. Consider building slowly versus taking out large loans or any debt. Consider that. For a rescue nonprofit, I find that creating relationships, again, is so supportive online and in person in the community surrounding me. One of the ways this is really positive is we have so many different kinds of animals here. Some are exotic, and in building relationships, we'll have the sheriff show up, and we need to go and help get an exotic animal, and we're the ones that are known for being able to do this in a really safe way that doesn't instill more fear into them. Bring them to the sanctuary, care for them temporarily, or hospice them if they're in need of that. So building relationships with the services in your area. Another thing that's really been amazing is to build relationships with other farms. There are other farms. There's a squash pumpkin farm, and they have like thousands of pounds of these seeds each year. I have a video I so wish I had right now I could share with you. We will go and get these humongous ton bags of it. It's donated to us. It's such a huge value. Julie had kind of mentioned this. So those value relationships are important. Begin to build those out. And like right now, write down 5 or 10 of the nonprofits that you admire or would love to work with or collaborate with. Be in collaboration in building out. Be in collaboration in building out your business as well. And for like something I mentioned above in like building the small community is sharing ideas for how they may support your cause. And ideas that are options outside of donating money. Be ready with those in an instant. Oh, I have so much to share about the others as well, yet my timer is going off.
Rose, thank you so much. I so appreciate the work that you do. Tessa, Julie, Carolyn, Rose, thank you so much for deep diving. We are going to go into another round. So Tessa, Carolyn, Julie, we'll have you re-involve in the next round. So let me just get my notes up here. So in a moment, we are going to go into another round with the panelists about steps you can take to turn your current business into a vessel for philanthropy. So even if your nonprofit or your church or healing center is out in the future, what can you actually start doing right now in your current business? You might already started to have some ideas based on what's been talked about. But we're going to go a little bit deeper into how you can turn your current business and actions you can take right now to start engaging in your business as a vessel for philanthropy. And then we're going to open it up for your questions. So take notes in your journal for the questions that you want to bring. I also want to remind you that you can follow up with the panelists individually. So we will have them share their contact information one more time in a moment when we go into the next round. So before we do all of that, we have an invitation for you, because we want you to feel totally supported in your journey towards your future nonprofit, your social impact project, your church, or your healing center. Even if your dream is a few years away, we want to invite you to continue to resource yourself now with our entire team of brilliant women leaders who know the path, who've created and led nonprofits and healing centers and foundations all over the world. So I'd like to invite you to continue to attend the upcoming trainings in our Vision, Create, and Grow Your Nonprofit series, so that when you're ready, you have the tools, you have the community, you have the mindset you need to actually birth your project. So I'm going to take a moment to tell you about the upcoming trainings and how you can access all of these trainings essentially for free. So coming up next is how to create and launch your dream nonprofit or project of positive change. What does it actually take? We're talking about the steps you need to take before and diving a little bit into the world of running a nonprofit. In this upcoming training, we're going to talk about what it actually takes to get your project off the ground and thriving. And then we're going to be diving into what we're touching on today, how to turn your current business into a philanthropic project of positive change. We're going to just dive into a slice of that today, but we want you to have this entire training. We're going to dive deeply into this particular piece. And then finally, the art of leading. Once you have your nonprofit, once you have your church, how do you continue to grow it? How do you sustain it? We've touched on this a little bit today, but we're going to dive deep into this entire training. And all of our trainings are free when you are a member of our Rise Sisterhood. As a member of our Rise Sisterhood, we also give you a free pass to our money elevation trainings, because we're passionate about prosperity being in the hands of women light leaders like you. Because when women leaders like you have wealth, we give back. We support social justice and humanitarian causes. When women light leaders have wealth, we fund education and initiatives that support women, children, equity, and the health of the planet. And also, your personal money shadows will show up in your organization. So to support you to lead your future organization wisely and opulently, our money elevation trainings are led live on Zoom by certified money coaches, business coaches, and financial coaches. And our next training is coming up in 2 weeks, how to create $10,000 or more each month in passive income. We want you to be able to transform the world with your mission and your message. So if you want to write a book in the next few years, you'll also enjoy our Write, Publish, and Launch Your Book training series led by award-winning, multiply published and best-selling women authors right here in this community. All of these live virtual training series with extraordinary women experts are included in our Rise Sisterhood membership. And finally, you also get to enjoy monthly networking. This is where we all get to stay connected with each other. All of the women that are here today, we get to stay connected. You can actually be networking now with women in the positive change world and surround yourself with heart-centered women entrepreneurs all over the globe. These women will become your supporters and help you gather community around your current business and your future philanthropic project. And you also get unlimited access to our business sistermind circles. You can come any week and workshop any part of your business or your marketing with us and receive high-level business knowledge from business coaches and supportive women entrepreneurs. This is a place for you to bring your ideas for your nonprofit and use us as a sounding board to get our advice around stepping forward towards your philanthropic mission and vision. So Rise Sisterhood is all about supporting you to create and grow your nonprofit, helping you to create financial freedom, helping you to launch and publish your book if that's what you want, and to continue to grow your audience and your community through networking and to elevate your business and your mission. The Rise Sisterhood membership is only $111 per month, and we want to invite you to join us today for just $20. So please come join with us. I'm going to go ahead and take us out of screen share so I can give you the link. So I just put the link to join the Rise Sisterhood in the chat. You can go ahead and click that link and then just use code RISE20 to join for $20. This code expires when our Zoom session ends today. So you can go ahead and click the link, join the Rise membership, and you can immediately start to RSVP for upcoming networking and trainings. And of course, this is 100% tax deductible for business owners. And we invite you to bring your biggest dreams with you. You are joining with over 100 heart-centered women doing meaningful work all over the world. Join us to continue learning and dreaming big dreams and taking steps forward. The code does expire when our Zoom session ends, so you can go ahead and join right now. We're going to go into another panel round, but go ahead and join us and continue learning and being surrounded by women like you, women who are dreaming big dreams and taking steps forward. So we invite you to join our Rise Sisterhood. All right. So we're going to go into our final, what I call our final geek out round. So panelists, what I want you to do, you're each going to have 2 minutes. So you can go ahead and set your phone timer for 2 minutes. And then remember in this round to go ahead and share your contact information again, so the audience members have your contact information. We ended with Rose in the last round. We're going to start with Rose in this round. Rose, you have 2 minutes. What I will say about all of the women here today, Tessa, Rose, Julie, and Carolyn, in addition to their collective decades of experience in founding and leading nonprofits, social impact projects all over the world, each expert here runs her own private 6 to 7 figure earning business. So these women are also here to share the shifts that you can make in your existing business to start serving philanthropically today. So Rose, can you share with women here about what steps they can take to start to turn their current business into a vessel of philanthropy?
Yes. Steps you can take today. Your current vessel. I'll use the day spa as an example. What I began doing was I originally had a home about 2 minutes from my day spa. I knew I wanted to have a farm sanctuary. And so I started to put into place the pieces of learning, what will this take, and then purchasing the land. So a step you can take is to figure out what are the things that I need to do or put in place to have this, if it's a nonprofit, those steps, and then begin to actually put yourself into action. Every baby step counts. Do something every week towards that vision. Every week it counts, or every day. Always be moving forward on that. So to figure out what are the steps and then start actually taking them. And something else that I did is I wanted to do retreats. So I utilized what I already had, the audience base or the client base, in promoting retreats. And look at your audience. Does it align with that next step? Can you be doing little mini events? Can you put together packaging or products that can support you in both raising money and connecting future clients or participants for your next offering? Is there anything else maybe I should talk about, Jessica?
You know, you're a mom of 6 children, and so I actually would love quick thoughts about how do we avoid burnout, right? We're running our business, we've got our
Yes.
families, we've got this future philanthropic dream. So any quick tips for avoiding
Yes.
burnout?
Oh, yeah. So avoiding burnout. A tip is that scheduling in self-care, and for me, because I own a day spa and healing center, I schedule it somewhere else so that I'm not working while I'm trying to avoid burnout. Check in on what you're reading when you're on vacation or you're spending time with your family. I really noticed that I was always working, I was always studying, I was always in self-help or business that I was reading. And really get into enjoyment, get into that pleasure and that yumminess again. And I talk about harmony versus balance. And as a homeschooling mom, something I did having businesses over the years is I created space within my businesses, like classroom, play areas, rest area, and lots of outdoor time in nature. And I shared opportunities, I offered opportunities, and I really listened to my children. What are they lit up about? So that they could then be invited in and really be able to invest in the business and create a sense of ownership through welcoming them in to give support, listen to their ideas. Projects became family fun, and still to this day, whenever we're doing a project at the brick and mortar, they come and we have fun. We turn on music, we dance, we're silly, and we really make it a very fun experience. And just take lots of breaks, incorporate positive experiences when your children are there. Really let them know that you're listening. If they say that they're tired or they're over it, or I want to go home, mom, listen, take a break, take them home, make them comfortable, let them know that family is first. And I always remembered that any negative experience is far more difficult to reverse than a positive experience. And my family, children also know that ultimately they can come to me with anything. They can also be a part of something if they're lit up about it or they have an idea. And schedule in, coming back around full cycle, schedule in self-care, like real intentional, authentic self-care and personal retreat times for yourself, and also time individually with each of your children is so important. And when you're in that self-care retreat time, maybe consider taking 1 to 3 retreats per year, where you can also be in renewing yourself and renewing your vision and your passion for what you do, for your business and for your nonprofit, just to be in that yumminess. And I love to attend other retreats. So I'm not working while I'm trying to also force myself to receive self-care and rejuvenate. So yes, does that help, Jessica?
Thank you so much, Rose. I so appreciate it. I see a question coming in the chat. We are going to open it up for Q&A in a moment. Oh, I'm seeing the registrations come in for Rise Sisterhood. Congratulations and welcome for those of you that are going to stay connected to our community and continue to resource yourself here. Let's continue with Tessa and any steps that women can take to start to turn their current business into a vessel of philanthropy. You've got your 2 minutes.
All right, thank you. I think sometimes when you're thinking about your philanthropy and then you've got a business or you've got some kind of career, you think of those as separate things. So I'm going to encourage you to look at how could these be connected? What are the underlying values that connect? And for those of you that already have businesses or have content, even if it's a blog, it doesn't matter what the content looks like. It just is all about the values. Look at what could I take from this and start to create maybe a free resource center or create a free meditation center or a web page, just like here's all my free meditations around this topic. So if you're going to create a philanthropy around helping women who have been abused, maybe you've got a whole bunch of meditation centered around esteem and self-worth, etc. So you want to look at what you already have and utilize it in some way. And if you don't have so much that you feel like you could create a resource center, let's say, you probably already have a way to communicate something around the connection to your philanthropy with your current audience, right? So even if it's just on social media or through email, start weaving it in. Give people opportunities. Hey, this is what I'm going to be doing. This really matters a lot. Like I've been noticing, this issue going on and I want to bring more attention to it. How about you? And so you're creating conversations around it. I think you can do that immediately. There we go. So that's my 2 minutes. And Jessica, I'm handing it back to you.
Thank you so much, Tessa. Tessa and Rose, remember to put your contact information in the chat for the audience. Let's go ahead and zoom over to Carolyn. Carolyn, any ways that women here can set up their current business as a vessel for philanthropy?
Yeah, if you have a current business and you're really just looking to become more aligned, I'd say, the easiest way is to identify a cause and then maybe organize your team to fundraise, kind of a run for cancer kind of thing. You can also designate a portion of your profits and say, okay, 5% of my net profit is going to go toward this cause. It could be micro lending for women, whatever that is. Another way is to, become a B Corp, a certified B Corp that I mentioned earlier. That process is a little stringent, so it might take time to get all your ducks in a row to qualify, but that's a good option. And then you can also start a foundation, and that's kind of what my intention was when I started the Moody Entrepreneur. Is to eventually have a portion of my absolute numbers profits feed into this organization to support entrepreneurs with mental health challenges. And so, then you go the nonprofit route and accept donations from your own business, basically. So it becomes a write-off on one end. And so these are all really good ways to just become more and more aligned with what you believe in, the causes you believe in, and creating a better planet for everyone.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Julie, we'd love to hear from you. What can women start to do in their current business to design it as a vessel for philanthropy?
Well, the first thing would be to charge enough for your work so that you have the extra that you can commit to either your own project that you're getting started or any other projects or nonprofits that you want to support. So like Carolyn was saying, committing a percent to your or other nonprofits and letting people know that you're doing that, right? Getting them excited about that. So they're like, oh, part of what I'm paying for here is actually that I'm supporting this other project as well. And I like the model too of as you're earning more money, you can actually increase the percentage. So like if you're earning 50K, 1% might be of your profits might be plenty, right? To give away. If you're earning 500K, you could afford to give away a higher percentage of your profits. Again, whether that's your own project or to another one. In terms of making your own business a vessel for philanthropy, it may or may not be related to the nonprofit project you're working on, or it might, but to create a sustainable model for scholarships, meaning, when I say sustainable, meaning that you get sustainable first, right? Before you're giving away scholarships all over the place. And then you're creating the right amount of reduced fee or free of charge work so that it works for both you and your clients. A big mistake people make is giving away before they're sustainable, right? It doesn't work if you're not filled up, right? You can't offer to others very well. Scholarships are a tricky business though, and I really recommend working with a diversity, equity, and inclusion consultant, and doing the deeper anti-racism and other work before just opening up scholarship programs. And this goes for a nonprofit too, is like getting really, really clear, having someone support you to get really clear on why you're giving scholarships and to whom, and are you ready to receive people of diverse backgrounds and income levels, or just whoever, right? It's like, it's one thing to say, hey, you can come, and it's another thing to be able to hold the space for a truly diverse group of people. And you can also, I think, well, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is something that we could just like geek out with all weekend. I wish we could just all get into the hot tub together and have our tea and just continue with these conversations. We are going to open it up for Q&A. I am seeing registrations for Rise come through. If you're on the fence, you can still join between now and when our Zoom session ends. And I encourage you to step in. Julie, Rose, Tessa, Carolyn are all part of the greater Rise community. So you're stepping in with them, and we all sit in circle together and light candles together and continue with these deep conversations. So please do join us. We're going to open it up for Q&A. And so this is just what we'll have you do, wise women in the audience, is go ahead and if you are able to do the raise hand emoji, if you kind of scroll down, there's a little reaction symbol. If you click that, you should be able to raise your hand. We'll be able to see that. I'll call on you and invite you to unmute yourself and ask your question. I did see, let's see, let me just find that again. Paulina said, how do we, and this was talking to Rose's suggestion of like, identify the steps you need to take. And so Paulina said, how do we best identify the steps? It sounds like a big question, but we'll go ahead and open that up if anyone here has any thoughts.
I'm going to share one real quick, just because when I was kind of figuring out, I have a church, I have the Moody Entrepreneur, my regular business, and I was feeling really pulled in a lot of different directions. And my advice on this is take your own medicine. So I did a breathwork journey. If you do Reiki, if you do any kind of energy healing, take your own medicine, connect to your higher self, and let that next step come through. I know that's kind of a woo answer, but it really worked for me. What came through for me was in the church I'm supported. I have a co-founder. So it's the one place I actually don't have to do things alone. And that really felt like the most nourishing and supportive.
I would love to share, again, connect with a like business or an exact business or nonprofit. Go in as a volunteer, even if it's for a few days or a few weeks, a couple hours a week or month. Really learn some of the realities and aspects of what it is you want to build out. And this will help to clarify some of the steps. And sometimes we can be surprised that we thought it might be this list, and it's actually a different list. So I find that very helpful in anything that I'm personally building out. It's always something that I have done. If there's a online business that you admire, potentially seek out someone that is on the team or runs that and offer to come in as a volunteer and support either online or at their in-person events. That is the best way I've found to begin to identify what are the steps. I really hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much. I see a question in the chat. I don't see anyone raising their hands, but I do see Christine. she said, do you know a good attorney I can contact about forming a church, or a person who is not an attorney to do this? So Carolyn, this might be a question for you. Like, who do women talk to when they want to create their business entity and set up a structure?
Yeah, most lawyers, I mean, I didn't find an attorney either. I found an advocate, so, and I'm happy to share that. I don't have her contact info handy, but I can dig that up and put it in there. You can do it yourself. Obviously, these aren't things you file. If you're doing a PMA or a 508c1a, you don't actually file anything with the government. You create these documents and just kind of hold on to them in case you're ever challenged. But I did use an advocate, and I know somebody asked earlier about kind of the price point. What I found across the board is that it runs around $2,400 to have someone set this all up for you. They'll create all the paperwork, and the membership applications are important because you have to get people to kind of sign on to what you're creating in terms of the bylaws and all that. So I will dig that up and share it momentarily in the chat, but do research, talk to different people. I think there are different perspectives on how much freedom you have when creating a PMA, and so you want someone that's kind of going to tell you the truth about tax exempt status. Some people I research were like, yeah, it's all tax exempt, don't even worry about it. And I actually hired the person that gave me the $5,000 rule, because I'm like, that feels more legitimate, rather than just doing what I want and hoping for the best. And so that's the route I went.
Wonderful.
And also, and I just want to add, most CPAs have no idea what a 508c1a is, or a PMA, and you don't actually have to file anything. That's why it's not part of their wheelhouse, because they don't have to do anything to run that for you. So yeah,
it's so great to know. Thank you so much. Is it Aina or Lena?
Lena.
Lena, welcome.
Thank you. I have like a whole bunch of questions, and they're all leaning toward Carolyn, but I'll just ask one, because what you just said kind of leads into my first one. I was going to ask, should we try to find an accountant who is well-versed in nonprofits? Like, I understand about not commingling. I have separate business accounts from personal. Should we have separate accounting and bookkeeping team from our business, or is that not necessary, or is that worse in some way?
You can use the same team. I mean, we specialize in a certain industry that's not nonprofits, but I have several nonprofit organizations. Depends on how big you get. Once you start getting restricted funds, you definitely want a professional managing that and making sure things are going into the right buckets. And so if you're going to be a 501c3, definitely find an accountant. And your bookkeeper should be able to do it, but once you get a little more complicated, you definitely want to find someone that specializes in that so that they know what they're doing.
Okay. And then I don't know if you have other questions, if I can ask the other.
Why don't you ask one more? Yeah.
Okay. So just so I'm clear on this, when you said there was a $5,000 cap and then you become a 501c3, is that a cap for all of your donations, or is that per donor?
No, that's for all of it. So once your your revenue, your donations hit $5,000, then it's questionable whether you're tax exempt. Before that, you're just kind of under the radar. And then once you hit the 5,000, of course, they don't know you've hit 5,000. So it's up to you to kind of self-report and say, hey, I'm now moving into questionable tax exempt land. And so it's really up to you on how long you want to just stay beneath the radar. Again, you can probably live in that land for a long time. And if somebody questions your validity, then, you open up a whole new can of worms with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from any of the other women here around anything that we talked about, or questions about steps between here and your future nonprofit or church or healing center?
Yes, I have one more.
Hi, Christine.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out how to do the raise hand. I'm just wondering about the rules of a church. You know, like they used to be one has to hold services every week and be of this or that synod or whatever. And I'm wondering how it is now, or where I would find out more about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's a great question, actually.
Oh, Carolyn, somehow you got muted again.
I accidentally hit something. You still have to basically follow the guidelines of a 501c3, and I think the IRS issues like a 14-point, how do you know if you're a legitimate church? And you still have to follow those to some extent. I know it's like offering services kind of thing. And so you kind of want to use that as a guideline. And so the idea is you basically designate yourself as a church, but you still have to follow their guidelines. You just don't have to report it, basically.
Thank you.
So we have a few more minutes, and between Tessa, Rose, Julie, and Carolyn have decades of experience in nonprofit leadership and fundraising. So, oh great, we have another question. I was like, there gotta be more questions. All right, here we go. So Courtney says, let's see, right decision to start. Let's see, how do you decide whether a nonprofit is the right decision or to start a for-profit business with a social mission? Julie, would you speak to this? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the main questions to ask is, does it need to be a nonprofit? Because you can be an ethical business, right? Some people think you need to be a nonprofit because that means that you're somehow doing a good thing. But the reality is, as Caroline mentioned before, is that there's complex stuff associated with being a nonprofit and lots of reporting, and you have to have a board and all. There's a lot of stuff that goes with it. There's a lot of public responsibility that you can get just by being an ethical business person, or by going through the process of becoming a B Corp too, which also sounds, I don't know as much about, but it sounds like there's a bunch of hoops there too. But that's always an option. So the question is there philanthropic money available for what you're doing? Know that in advance, right? Like some people start nonprofits thinking that they are going to just be able to fundraise, like it's just going to happen, right? And it's not, the money's not always there. And not that you can't do brilliant things and conjure it up. I'm not saying that's not possible, but there are thousands of foundations around the country, for example, and they fund many, many different things. And so one of the things you can do before you start a nonprofit is do the research. Like, are there other organizations like the one that I want to start that are being funded philanthropically, right? Is there a decent chance I can write a grant proposal and get some money for this thing? Is it the kind of thing that just makes sense for people to be donating to? Versus, if you're offering educational programs and services and things like that, it's really worth thinking about whether it can actually be a for-profit business and not have to kind of deal with everything that comes along with a nonprofit.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Courtney, for the question. That's a wonderful facet for us to dive into. We have time for one or two more questions. Anything that was covered, or maybe something that wasn't covered that you were hoping that we would dive into more deeply. Tessa, I just saw you unmute yourself, so I don't know if you wanted to chime in with anything.
Yeah, there is one thing that I wanted to share today that I think a lot of people aren't really aware of until it's like too late. And that is when you have staff in a nonprofit, just because they're paid to show up doesn't mean they're going to understand what you're doing with your fundraising. So you need to understand how they relate to why they're there, and then translate and communicate how the fundraising connects to that. So for example, if you're going to have a big casino night and the tickets are $100 each just to get in the door, I can guarantee you most of your staff at a nonprofit organization are going to be like, $100? There's like disconnect with abundance thinking sometimes. And so they're going to be like, well, I can't do it. I guess we'll just, like wait tables or whatever. And so you need to help them understand that it's not a separate thing. Like the people that have the money to pay $100 for that entry are not elitists or, it's not classism. And you want to be able to tell them, for every ticket, every $100, we're going to be able to send 50 menstrual kits to Uganda, right? So you've got to talk to them in their language, and they'll be like, what? We can do that? Oh my gosh, let me go out there and sell tickets for you right now. So you've got to understand what motivates them to connect to your donors and your fundraising capacities, and it'll pay off beautifully.
That's super helpful, because one of the first things that was brought into this conversation today by more than one panelist was the importance of having a clear message. And I think sometimes when we think of a clear message, we think of like the words we say on social media, but it really is like in every conversation, every relational moment. That I really appreciate you bringing that in, Tessa. We have time for one more question, then we do need to complete. Let's see. Interesting. So Susan's asking about sponsorships, a good way to support business mission-based projects. Susan, can you unmute yourself? Because I may not quite understand exactly what you're asking.
I was trying to figure out the best way to say that. I'm doing a summit. I'm calling it a symposium, and I'm considering asking for sponsorships from businesses to give them visibility and to support being able to perhaps hire some speakers or pay.
I love this question. Yeah, because we're diving a little bit into fundraising today. We're going to dive more into fundraising in one of our future trainings. But yeah, so sponsorships as a way of fundraising. Is that okay? Wonderful. Yeah, I would love to hear from any of the other women here around sponsorships, and if that's something that you'd like to speak to.
But for a business as opposed to a nonprofit.
I had a connection with someone who's working with against human trafficking, and I provided some content for her website, and getting the message out to her people. And one of the things we did is I made a donation to the company, because she was a private company, not a nonprofit. And then we turned it into a sponsorship. So I get, some placement on her website, that sort of thing. So I don't know if that's speaking to exactly what you're talking about, but I think you can get really creative with people who have funding, who might want a little visibility, or might want to be a guest on something that you do, or on your podcast, or whatever it is. There are ways to collaborate.
That's great.
Rose, I would love to hear you speak about this, because I imagine sponsorship, you were talking about collaborating with other businesses. I mean, that's just such a deeply woven into the fabric, I think, of any successful business or business model. So yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts about this.
So there would be an aspect that could be the value trade and that collaboration piece, and also the money, where someone would be purchasing, like she had asked about purchasing to be featured in her materials for her summit. And I've done that. I've donated for things like that to essentially sponsor events that I believe in before. And I do love, for both my brick and mortar business and my nonprofits, doing the value exchange as well. So if someone would like to come in and be featured in an event, or be a part of a retreat or something like that, I've done that. And I have definitely gotten sponsorship for a brick and mortar in the past, and I believe it would be pretty aligned with what she might be talking about. And I found that that's been a good exchange, both for the business as well as those that have been a part of that we're essentially featuring. Like when we do some of our events, like our red carpet event, we have like the whole red carpet and the lines, and we do the background. Just so we have our sponsors on that for the photos. We have a professional photographer there. And that's a way that they also get that added layer. We kind of layer the visibility in. And yeah, if there's any more, you can reach out to me if you'd like to kind of connect with me and talk about that more.
Thank you so much,
You're
Rose.
welcome.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that really quickly, just because it is so collaborative. Sponsorships really floated FemTalks. So for the 10 plus years that I ran live women's networking events in Berkeley and Oakland, those events were really floated by sponsorships, because the ticket sales weren't, with the overhead here in the Bay Area and renting an event space, just relying on ticket sales was never quite going to cut it. And so it really was the sponsorships, and just really handpicking those sponsors as well, so that they were women who also ran very aligned businesses and were doing wonderful things in the world. And then they got to be featured with a table. Sometimes they would lead a workshop, and it was just wonderful, just generative business model that was just built on a foundation of collaboration. We do officially need to end our time together, but I just feel like, I just want to hear what Julie has to say, and what Carolyn has to say, what Tessa has to say, and Rose has to say about 10 other things. So just know that this conversation will continue. We will email you with our future trainings. Thank you so much to Julie, to Rose, to Tessa, to Carolyn. Wise women in the audience, I want to invite you to, don't do this alone. Don't try to figure it out on your own. Reach out to Julie, reach out to Rose, reach out to Tessa, reach out to Carolyn. They have made themselves available with their information for you. So please do reach out. And thank you so much for those of you that joined Rise Sisterhood today. I'm so delighted that I get to be in community with you. I would say about 30% of the women in the audience here are already Rise Sisters. So you are stepping into a really wonderful, wonderful global women's community. Thank you so much. And we're going to go ahead and complete. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the recording, but we just really appreciate you all for being here. We can't do this without you. So thank you.